In Wexford, several of the finest nursing homes in the country exist, one of which is Knockeen Nursing Home, run by Mary and Nicola Dorn. They're renowned for providing the highest standard of care to their residents. Unfortunately, Nicola Dorn found she had to speak out in the Wexford People this week. The headline stated that nursing home testing was a farce. The nursing home was tested on the 24th of April and waited for 13 days on the test results. And in a bizarre twist, on the 29th of March, a HSE staff member told Nicola Dorn that they had the results but were not at liberty to give them out. However, after the matter was reported in the Wexford People this week, the results were made available within 24 hours after its publication. Thankfully, they're clear. The situation did, however, cause extreme and needless stress on the owners, who were concerned to know that they hadn't COVID in the home, the staff, many of whom were living with people who were compromised, the families of the residents, who were beside themselves with worry, wondering whether their parents were in a nursing home with COVID and possibly infected. On a daily basis, in the national media, government spokespersons are telling us that nursing home testing is being turned around in 48 hours. I, nor anybody that I have spoken to within the medical fraternity or politics, has experienced any nursing home being in receipt of their results in such a time frame. Taoiseach, one of my questions is, can you confirm to the House that all testing for nursing homes will be completed and turned around within 24 hours? After all, NEFIT and the HSE have had 8 weeks to get it right, and the nursing homes who have borne the brunt of the questionable decisions of the state deserve at least the courtesy of knowing that their test results what they are in a timely fashion. Taoiseach, many physicians and doctors that I've been in touch with are completely frustrated with the testing process. They tell me that most of the testing to date has been an absolute waste, and this follows on from what Deputy Shortall and possibly Deputy Kelly had in mind, as the test results were so old that it was impossible to trace all the contacts and those who were tested positive. You know, as the idea behind the model, as far as we're aware, of test, trace and isolate, is that this will be done in an immediate fashion. You yourself said that we now have the capacity to test 12,000 people. The question is, what's the capacity to have the 12,000 results turned around in 24 hours? So can the Taoiseach confirm what are the numbers of tests we have, which I think you already have today? You've said 12,000, but the turnaround of delivering the results in 48 hours. What numbers are traced as a result of the positive tests already confirmed? And can the Taoiseach also tell us how many people that tested positive have recovered before they got the results? These figures are the figures that we require to be published to instil confidence and transparency. Taoiseach, I was pleased to see the roadmap. It was produced and it did give hope to people on an eventual easing of the restrictions. However, I do feel that the roadmap hasn't addressed the calamity of testing, and I feel it was a missed opportunity. And again, there's no defined targets laid down for the HSE in relation to testing. The roadmap is like a house, Taoiseach. You can't build a house without a foundation. What we need is a testing roadmap, one with defined targets and deadlines for a testing regime that underpins the opening of your roadmap. People want a clear vision of where they need to be, to see a trigger for each phase to move forwards or backwards. Equally, there is no mention of containment strategy. All of these things are fundamental to the success of your roadmap. I accept that we both know that there have been issues in relation to reagents, PPE gear and the capacity at laboratories. But you must also know that without a roadmap for testing that sets down defined targets to address and ensure results are turned around within 24 or 48 hours, the roadmap leads to a cul-de-sac. We have 8 weeks of lockdown. The public have played their part and the public needs clarity on testing. Can you confirm that such a roadmap will be provided and the date at which it will be provided? Taoiseach, I know that you're only too aware that this is costing the country between 200 and 400 million a working day, and that you must see the need for a roadmap on testing as I've outlined. The nation is at breaking point, being locked up, and testing is the only way and the only safe way of easing restrictions. If the Taoiseach could answer the questions, please. Thank you.
Taoiseach. Thanks, Deputy. I'll certainly do my best. In answer to your first question, I can't confirm that. 24 hours is extremely difficult to achieve and almost impossible for tests that are sent to Germany, because obviously they have to be flown to Germany. But turnaround times are improving, and they will improve further. And I think people accept that there were unacceptable and inordinate delays some weeks ago. It's far from perfect now, but it is improving. Certainly for healthcare workers and healthcare staff, we have a very quick turnaround, but it is longer for others. The objective is to have results within 48 hours. But can I promise that 100% of the time it will be possible to do that? I can't, and I'm not actually sure anyone's able to achieve that 100% of the time. But certainly we'd anticipate having the vast majority of tests back within 48 hours. I don't have the exact date of the Deputy requests. It may not be available, but if it is, I will ask the Department of Health to provide it to her by correspondence. The roadmap that we produced on Friday was about reopening society, reopening the economy, reopening Ireland. It wasn't a roadmap on testing, but a lot of work is being done to build on the work that's already been done on that by the Department of Health, by the HSE and by NEFID. It is really important that if we're going to proceed with easing the restrictions, that we have a robust testing and contact tracing system in place and operating. But I would point out that there are lots of countries around Europe now that are easing their restrictions. Germany, for example, Denmark, quite soon Spain and Belgium. None of those countries have tested as many people per head as we have, and yet they are proceeding with easing their restrictions. So it's not that one is absolutely totally contingent on the other.
Murphy, yeah.
Thank you. Taoiseach, I wouldn't agree with your last statement. I think, in fact, they are intrinsically linked. Testing, tracing and isolating is the only thing that's going to see the country open up in a regard that it won't have to close down again, because we don't have a testing system. So I would again ask you to ask the HSE to produce a roadmap that underpins your roadmap in the way in which I've suggested, that we set targets, define targets that we can reach through the testing, tracing and isolating. And when you say it's difficult to get tests to Germany, I appreciate that, having been in the logistics industry for all my life, but we have 26 labs here in Ireland. And I'm fully aware that some of them are prohibited for some reason for testing nursing home tests. And I don't fully understand that, but I think it's something that is, without a shadow of a doubt, something that should be looked into. We should be using all of our capacity in our 26 labs. Thank you, Count Corley.
To conclude, please.
Thanks very much, Deputy. I will indeed ask the HSE to produce a roadmap on testing. They may in fact have done that already, but there are lots of documents being developed all the time and lots of drafts that people will be aware of. But I think that would be a useful thing for them to do, and I'll certainly take that up with the HSE CEO. On the final point, there's about 40 labs now that can test for COVID. I haven't heard of any being prohibited from testing nursing homes. Maybe that is the case, but I certainly can't confirm it's the case.
Murphy, there's little time remaining.
Well, Taoiseach, I just ask you to look into the fact that we're utilising all our lab capacity, and that there aren't any prohibitions on testing, because if testing is turned around, as I've said, within the 24-48-hour period, it gives us a much better chance at the contact tracing and isolation model. Thank you.
The Deputy is absolutely right. The quicker we can turn around the tests, the better we can do in terms of contact tracing. But I should point out that contact tracing can start and does start before the tests come back. So if somebody is a suspected case, you can actually start the contact tracing before the test comes back. And indeed, that's what's commonly done in South Korea and other jurisdictions. So again, you can begin the contact tracing even before the test results come back.
Thank you.
And I appreciate that, Taoiseach. I have many people contacting me saying that they've never actually been contacted and were clearly in contact with people who had not only been tested but tested positive. I'd also like to say that there is a current report in the papers today saying that we are actually only using 2% of the people who were employed to do contact tracing. And I think that's very worrying. And again, it's something that I think needs to be looked at. After all, look, Taoiseach, I think we're all well aware that politicians make the decisions based on the medical advice. And that's all I'm saying. In order to get our house in order in relation to testing, I think you'll have to take the bull by the horns and put a testing system, insist on a roadmap, which you've already committed to, and thank you for that, but insist on a roadmap that underpins your roadmap, and we may well get out of phase 1 to 5 within or less than the 3-week defined between.
Thank you, Deputy Murphy. Now, Deputy O'Donoghue, sharing with